All right, so I'm planning today to give you a lecture on something that's more fundamental to game design itself. How many of you guys want to be game designers? All right, so we've got a fair number of you. Excellent. Then I hope this talk is of some benefit to you guys. We are going to talk about a very basic misunderstanding that usually happens when we begin to design games. Today's lecture is going to be about a paper written in early, I think 2000, 2001, called Mechanics, Dynamics, Aesthetics. And so after this lecture, if you want to go look up this paper, if you just Google Mechanics, Dynamics, Aesthetics, you'll find it, no problem. This paper is particularly interesting and particularly compelling to us as game designers because it was written by academics. It wasn't written by game designers. But as people outside the field, they had a few fundamental insights that we couldn't get because we were too close to the subject. And so as I go through this and share this with you today, understand that when you go back and look at this paper, it's very valuable, but like any papers on game design, take it with a grain of salt. This is an evolving science. Actually, at best, it's probably called an alchemy rather than a science. There's a lot as academics that they didn't understand. So I'm going to be giving you a lot of what I consider updates to some of this thinking. When you go back, you'll see the discrepancies, but I hope this is more valuable. So, all right, on to the aesthetics of play. Let's talk about the first place where they had some insights that were really new to this industry. First, let's talk about these terms. We've got, if you can see it up here, mechanics, dynamics, and aesthetics, right? They broke down all gameplay into these three simple parts. Mechanics are your rules, your systems, which deliver your dynamics, your moments of play, what you experience in the game, which in turn give us our aesthetics. And our aesthetics, which is what this entire lecture is going to be about, is our aesthetics are the core reasons that we go to play a game. When we think about it, right, take, for example, Mass Effect and Call of Duty. Have most of you guys played both of those? OK, good. If there's any examples I'm using that you guys just start shaking your heads and be like, no. So Mass Effect and Call of Duty, and you guys will probably see this on upcoming extra credits because as I was thinking about this in the hotel room, I started typing up actually another episode. So, but Mass Effect and Call of Duty, right? These are both games that have very similar surface mechanics in some ways, right? You've got third-person shooting, first-person shooting. You've got a leveling system in both, right? And yet we can somehow tell that one of these is an RPG and one of them is a first-person shooter, right? How do we make that distinction? I'm going to draw answers out of you guys. But in this particular case, it's this aesthetics, right? There are different core reasons that we as human beings want to engage in both those experiences. And as a designer, your job is really to create those core aesthetics more than anything else. So, as I said, I'm going to draw some answers out of you guys. I'm going to start calling on the crowd at random if nobody raises a hand. And you're just going to have to shout out because I don't think anybody's going to be able to get the mics fast enough. But all right, so I've given this, right? We've talked a little bit about the different meanings between mechanics, dynamics, and aesthetics. What is this picture up here? What does this mean? Anyone, thoughts? You can't be wrong, right? Like, I'm not grading you, so you might as well just throw out an answer. Because especially if any of you guys want to be designers. Oh, excellent, we got one.
What's more important for the different people?
Exactly, right? So, and it's not even important, right? While that is a way to put it, it's really a perspective shift. This is how we have to see it, right? As a designer, where you begin is you begin by creating your mechanics, right? You begin by putting together these rule sets. This is often how we see our projects. But as a player, the first thing, and perhaps the only thing the player cares about, are these aesthetics, are the fundamental reasons that are coming to the experience. But this is very removed from how the designer experiences the game. And so one of the first key elements that they realized, and which I hope to impart to all of you, is that as a designer, you're not building a game for a screen. What's up here? That's not relevant. And yet that's where most of us start, right? By building these systems, by creating this thing, and then kicking it out the door and hoping people like it. But really, what you're really creating is an experience for a human being. You're not designing for the machine. You're designing for the person sitting at the machine. And you have to be cognizant of this at all times. So this is the first really fundamental insight that they had. By the way, thank you for being brave and answering that one. For all of you guys, if you are aspiring designers, by the way, get used to throwing your thoughts out there. Because more than any of this, the single most important design skill is actually communication. Your ability to interact with a team, and a multidisciplinary team. You'll be working with artists and programmers, and all sorts of people have totally different mindsets. So the principal thing you should work at before even this is this ability to communicate your ideas and get everyone on the same page. But now that we've got that, all right, so with that in mind, they started to ask themselves, well, okay, how big is this set? Is this a limitless set? Are there vast differences here? Can we never encapsulate this set? Or are there only a handful of aesthetics? Well, the answer was somewhat surprising to me because it's neither, it's both. There are potentially a wide range of aesthetics, but in games especially, there's only a handful. There's probably maybe a dozen most that can cover 90% of games. Of course, that's not going to be true, or at least not as true, in 5, 10 years when you guys get out there and start making games that aren't about the same things, right? For all my career, I've gotten to make games which are power fantasies and brain teasers. I've never made a game about the taste of a peach or what it's like to fall in love, but you guys will. And then you're gonna have to redefine this for yourselves. In 5 years, I expect to come back and sit out there and watch some of you guys tell me what the new ones are. But for today, let's just go over a couple of these, and then if we get time, which I'm not sure we will, let's talk about how we use them. So the first thing to realize is that most games can be encapsulated with some small combination, 2, maybe 3, most 4 of these 8 basic sets. I'm probably going to add 1 or 2. But before we dive into this and try and figure out what these things mean, because, man, even if English is your first language, a lot of these have words that we use in English that are used a totally different way here. So it's a little bit of jargon. We're going to try and dig through it. But when we do so, when we're talking about examples of each of these, the key thing to remember here is that you're talking about the core aesthetics, the reason that you come to play a game, because you can find almost all of these in almost every game. But most of the time, most of them are being used to support a very small handful of them. So let's dive right in, because we're a little short on time, and see what we can get through. So let's talk about number 1, sensation. Game as sense pleasure. What does that mean? Anyone? A thought? All right, we got one. Shoot.
It's nice to look at, it's nice to hear, it makes you feel good.
Yes. Excellent. Great. You guys are quick. Game as sense pleasure is exactly that, right? It's the senses. Eventually, you guys will create games that smell good. But for right now, we have games that you play. If you've ever sat down and played a game because you just loved how it looked, or wanted to hear the music again, right? if you've played for reasons that aren't the actual play of the game, but all the other sensory experiences. Have any of you guys seen an iPad game called Fingal? No, this one I'm totally lost here. Fingal's a hilarious, weird game. I don't even know if it's available here, but it blew my mind because it was about sense pleasure in a way that I had never thought of building a game about sense pleasure. It's basically a game where it's on an iPad, and you've got a group of pieces which you've got to move around in real time to get to specific spots, and so does someone else on the same iPad. Well, you're supposed to play it with your girlfriend or boyfriend because you're moving them around and you end up with hands intertwined in most of the time. And I was like, wow, that is a vector I hadn't even thought of in game design. So there is more than just visual and audio pleasure when we're talking about sense pleasure. But can anyone name a game that you've played that one of the core aesthetics, one of the core reasons you play it is for sense pleasure? Yes?
Flower.
What?
Flower.
Flower. OK, great. So you played Flower, you went into it, and you played it to hear the music, to look at the pictures. All right, great. Anybody else? Anything else? Yes, over there.
Okami.
Oh, interesting, Okami. So did you play Okami? Did you sit back down being like, I really want to see how this looks?
Yes.
OK, excellent. Anybody else? Yes?
League of Legends.
Interesting. I feel like there's some catering going on here. Just FYI, I'm pretty sure League of Legends is going to fit into every one of these categories before we're done. Because League of Legends is truly a narrative game. All right, so moving on. Anyone else have any thoughts as far as sense pleasure? I got a couple more. Yes. Loco Roco. And what sense pleasure were you playing for in Loco Roco? Yes. Loco Roco, the music comes, like, I can still sing that song. I won't because you guys don't want me to. All right, so sense pleasure. We've got this idea of playing for the senses. I know people who play Rock Band specifically to hear the songs, right? I actually even know a guy who plays Rock Band specifically because he likes how it feels to jam on the drums, right? He doesn't even care. He often plays in like practice mode or whatever it is, the you can't lose mode, because he just wants to sit there and jam and likes how the like bounce of those drum hits. That's sense pleasure, right? That is one of the ways that we can get a human being engaged. And so if you're a designer and you are building out your experiences, sense pleasure is one of your core experiences, you need to isolate that early and start finding how you're going to deliver on that. All right, let's move to the next one. Fantasy. Game as make-believe. What does this mean? All right, do it.
The first thing that came to mind is RPG and RPG Online. Anything that makes you involve in the story and make decisions.
All right, so the claim is anything that gets you involved in the story or has you make decisions. But what else is make-believe? Can anybody give me a non-RPG game that's make-believe? Yes, I saw you first.
Identifying yourself with the character, not the story.
Exactly, right? So now we're starting to get it. Anyone else? Any thoughts? Yes.
Transport yourself to another world, to completely another dimension.
All right, so I may be getting lost in the fantasy of the place as well as the character. Anything else? Yes.
Someone you're not.
Yes. All right, great. Now, we got it pretty quick. So fantasy is this element of stepping into a role or stepping into a world. This is very different than narrative, which we're going to talk about soon. So can anyone name a game that has a high element of fantasy? Yes, back there. Skyrim. Interesting. So tell me about Skyrim. Why is one of the core aesthetics of Skyrim fantasy to you?
Because I am the dragonfly.
Yes! You're lucky I don't make you shout for us. Anybody else, though? Any other thoughts? Other games? Yes?
Final Fantasy.
All right. Interesting. So why would fantasy be a core aesthetic of Final Fantasy other than that they put it in the name?
Well, Final Fantasy, especially from 4, the fourth game onward, it gives me the
that fast?
So it's very, very interesting. Last night, while I was really thinking about this, I actually decided that in my mind, I don't think I play Final Fantasy to be Titus or to be any of these characters, not even Cloud, right? Even the fact that they're named, right, they're somebody else. I think one of the big differentiators between Western and Eastern RPGs is that Eastern RPGs are much more about this, which we'll get to in a minute. But think about any Western RPG, right? Who's the main character in Fallout 3? You are. Who's the main character in BioShock? Right. Who's the main character in, there you go, I mean, any of these, right, where you're stepping into a role. And it doesn't have to be only first-person shooters, although it helps. Give me a couple more examples of fantasy in play. Yes? So, all right, World of Warcraft. Here, we end up really taking on a role. World of Warcraft is a fascinating one because it evolves so much that I think that the core aesthetics change over time, right? Like, I think the raid game and the PvP game may have a different set of core aesthetics. World of Warcraft may actually be 3 games in my mind. But they still all use mostly the same core aesthetics. What else? Yes?
Black and white.
Interesting. So, because, all right, stepping into the role of God, I can see it. Farmville. I will leave that to be your fantasy, sir. So the thing that's really interesting about fantasy, though, is we have to remember that it's a very core element of a lot of games which don't fit into the swords and sorcery mold, which we talk about here a fair amount. Call of Duty series, right? You, especially the single player, you are that Marine, right? It is very, very clearly a macho military fantasy. And if they did not sell that fantasy as well, you would lose players, right? So when I was working on the Call of Duty series, one of the key things was getting the guns right. Because you put in the wrong guns, people start calling you on it. It breaks their immersion, breaks this fantasy for them. Getting the jargon right. All these little elements that, why do we put them in there? Because that's what they support. They support that fantasy. There are a lot of games, there are tropes that we can pull from that we can deliver fantasy on. I mean, the Space Marine is a very common one. Your pirate or ninja, you just have to think about what the actual human fantasy is there, right? When you're building out this game. And how can all of your mechanics deliver those moments, right? How can all of your mechanics create dynamics, create moments of play that really make you feel like that fantasy, like that character? All right, so now let's move on to narrative. Game as drama. Give me a couple of these. All right, we got one for Heavy Rain. I should probably go back and say, somebody define game as drama for me. That's a weird way of putting it. Anyone? Over there.
Mass Effect.
All right, but before we hit specific games, I really should make sure that we're all on the same page. So does anyone have a definition? Why do we say game as drama instead of story or something like that? Yes, over there. All right, so that's a pretty good rule of thumb for what we've got here. But yes, over there.
The choices you make the game.
Interesting. Because there are lots of places where we can deliver on drama without that element. I'd have to think about that one more. Yes?
Narrative, the story, you have the story, you have the dialogue, the descriptions, and all that. But the narrative can be told in little things, like the animations of the characters, or small scenario pieces, or, I don't know.
So we're starting to get there. Yes?
Drama is the Greek word for action. So games imply interactions. So we should tell our story through an interactive way.
So I agree with that statement. I am not sure that is entirely what they meant. We'll get a couple more, and then we'll start talking about specific games. But yes?
Storytelling in games is not linear.
That is sometimes true, usually better when true, but so that might be a reason why we talk about game as drama. Yes?
I feel that for a game to have drama, you have to have a personal stake in it. The characters must really speak out to you and mean something to you, especially if you also represent the main character avatar. So if they die, your feelings, you're kind of like feeling the same as the main character, I think.
This is good, and I don't want to tell all the rest of you guys, because we've got a bunch more hands up, but this is fantastic. This is the sort of discussion I want you guys to have amongst yourselves as we, after I leave this stage, and you guys keep building these things out. Because you guys, some of you guys are going to get to build games over the course of your time here, yes? Awesome. Great, then I hope these conversations can actually get you better grades. All right, so game as drama. We've got a couple of things. I mean, basically, we are talking about interpersonal interactions, right? This is more the narrative, as we talked about it a little bit, that isn't your linear story, your narrative told in all sorts of ways, versus the specific fantasy we're stepping into. So with that in mind, excluding League of Legends and Farmville, can we give me a couple of games that fit as games as drama? Yes. Max Payne. All right, tell me why. Do you play Max Payne for the narrative, for the drama?
Yes, because I like the history behind the game.
And so you care about the human element, right? That Max Payne himself and this world he's walking through. All right, go for it. All right, very interesting choice. Did you guys all see Dear Esther is now out on Steam? Do you guys all know what Dear Esther is? All right, good. Enough of you said yes. I'm going to ignore the ones who said no. You can just ask everybody else. All right, so give me why Dear Esther?
I think it's not, we shouldn't give the content of the game. It's more about just narrative. We have some, I don't even have played the game already. Some gameplay, but I think it's a good example.
Well, so Dear Esther is largely about this moment, right? Because for those of you who have seen it, it's truly nonlinear narrative. It's you walk around an island, and as you walk around an island, voiceovers trigger and tell you things about the experience of the human beings on that island. And so you start caring about their interactions. But let's get a couple more. Yes? Excellent. So this is the one I was waiting for. This is the one that I was actually going to give to you guys if we didn't get it. So tell me about the Sims game as narrative. So tell me why.
Why? Because in a game that is as open as it is, the possibility for stories and for narrative in there is infinite. And we get really invested emotionally on those characters.
Right. So for most of us, the only thing you're playing for in The Sims is that dramatic interaction between the characters. And so even though there are no written words, right? There's no dialogue. Everything they've done in that game, all the design decisions are intended to create this emotion, right? This caring, this feeling that they're having real interactions between human beings in some way that's meaningful. Down to, for all of you guys, have all of you guys played The Sims? All right, good, most of you guys. For anyone who wants to be a game designer, if a game has sold more than $1 billion worth of product, you should have played it. I don't care that it's a sports game which you hate, or it's a game for girls, I will kick you, or it's Farmville, right? You should play it because there's something there to learn from. It's appealing to enough people. There is some element that, as a game designer, you should know. All right, so we got The Sims there. What else? We got anything else? Yes, over there. Yes? Bastion. All right, so tell me about Bastion game as narrative.
Play as a character, but you have some
So, all right, you're playing for that story, right? Once again, we're talking about the core reasons we play and not things. I mean, there is a story in Mario, right? Like, princess is in another castle. Very few of us play because we are brokenhearted that the princess has been kidnapped. So it's, again, remember these as our core reasons that we come to these games. And The Sims is a great one because I want you guys to think broader. As you guys get out there and as you start to build games, as you start to create games in an environment that's totally unlike the things I really got to experience, right? Because now you don't need $20 million to build a game. You guys are going to be able to build games for Flash, for Facebook, for iPad and iPhone, for Xbox Live, for some amount of money that you can afford to take risks. And so I want you guys to make sure to start thinking beyond your traditional narrative as it's delivered in other mediums, in films, in books. Because how many of you guys have played EVE Online? Some of you guys. I'm surprised you still are in college. But if I had another life, I would waste it playing EVE. I mean, waste is the wrong word. All right, so the thing about EVE, though, is while it's an MMO, so many of the players, I mean, their other core aesthetics, will talk about fellowship and some of the others that they bring up. But one of the core reasons people play EVE is for this campfire moment, right? All these ridiculous stories. More of you guys have probably heard the stories of EVE players robbing tens of thousands of dollars from each other in real world cash than have actually played EVE, right? So yes?
I've wasted 3 months playing EVE. Then on the third month, I was dead without any ships and any money.
And so we already have this compulsion to share our stories, right? And so much of EVE is actually set up to allow for that ridiculousness. EVE itself is the actual storyline in it, right? If you read the narrative of the world, it's not very good. But the narrative of the players is fascinating. So think about other ways you can deliver this rather than blocks of text. Yes?
I think Final Fantasy fits more on narrative and fantasy.
Yes.
For example, my favorite game is Final Fantasy VIII. We have the main story, and at the same time, we follow the conflict of the main character. Paul. He's a lonely boy, doesn't have any friends, and has to fit in society. And along with the story, you can feel his emotions and his problems.
So, and I mean, it's a good point, right? The difference between fantasy and narrative, in a lot of times, fantasy is being that fantasy, whereas narrative, on the other hand, is observing. And that's a rule of thumb, right? That isn't 100% true all the time, but it's a very, if you're trying to decide, that's usually a good line to draw. And the Final Fantasies are really very often not fantasy games because it's not that they try and put us in the shoes of those characters so much as they try and engage us in the human drama going on between those characters, right? And in a lot of ways, even elements such as how those characters are dressed or how they actually fight in combat helps deliver that narrative to us, right? We care about some of those characters because they've healed us for the last 80 hours, right? That actually increases the narrative, the game as drama element. So as a designer, you have to be thinking through all of these moments and realizing what you're trying to deliver when you go about really taking that examination of your systems and mechanics. All right, so let's talk about challenge. Challenge is often one of the most complicated for people to really understand because we've got this very strange definition, right? You got game as obstacle course. So tell me about a game as an obstacle course. What is this? Yes?
I want to be the guy.
Oh, I want to be the guy. Well, I want to be the guy. It's very, I will return to that particular answer when we drill down a little bit more on this. But yeah, sure, right there. Yeah?
Street Fighter.
Street Fighter. So Street Fighter may have elements of this as well, although we'll argue that in a moment. I want a better definition. Let's make sure that we're all on the same page and talking about the same games. Yes?
To make someone thrive for that feeling of finally completing something really difficult.
So we've got making someone strive for completing something that they really felt was difficult. All right, let's see if we can figure out a little bit more. Yes?
Super Meat Boy.
So Super Meat Boy, this is intriguing to me, and I will tell you why in a moment. But anybody else thoughts on this definition, game as obstacle course? All the way in the back. There are two of you. One of you can figure it out. What was that? All right, so we'll, again, when we get to specific games, we'll dig down in that course. But tell me a little bit more about game as obstacle course. Yes? Over there.
It feels good to overcome an obstacle.
So that is actually the definition. We very often, especially amongst young designers, I run into this issue that they see this as difficulty. That is not at all what this is. Difficulty is one way, is one dynamic that we often use to deliver on the aesthetic of challenge. But it is far and away not the actual aesthetic of challenge. The reason they have game as obstacle course, my favorite example of challenge is charades, right? If I want to win charades, I would just tell you what the word is, and then you would say it, and we would win. But we choose to place an arbitrary obstacle between ourselves and the objective of the game, because overcoming that objective, that obstacle, is enjoyable, engaging in and of itself, right? If you think about it, Mario, right? If Mario was nothing but a flat plane and all he did was walk this way and then got a flagpole, done. Like that wouldn't have this element. But it isn't about the difficulty. It's about the joy in overcoming those specific obstacles. And Mario is, to me, a really good example because most of you guys have a kind of mental picture of Mario 1-1. Do you guys know the first world of Mario? Yes. All right, good, good. If you guys were in one of my design classes, I would call somebody up at this moment who claims to know it and make them draw it on the board, and then we call it up and see how right you are. But I won't torture you guys with that. But all right, so Mario 1-1. You're going through, and about maybe 2/3 of the way through the level, you hit the block and the star comes out, right? And you go running after the star because it's booking down that way and bouncing, and you have to go grab it, right? So you have this little bit of difficulty there, but when you grab it, you got all sorts of sense pleasure stuff reinforcing this moment. You start flashing, and then right in front of you are like 4 or 5 Goombas in a line, right? And you run through them, and you're just wasting these Goombas, right? Like you're just taking them out all over the place. The big numbers are popping up. That moment is challenge, right? Because although it's actually much easier than fighting those 4 Goombas at any other time, it's the joy of overcoming that obstacle that is really challenged. So here's a place where we put in that power fantasy to generate challenge. Very often we use the illusion of challenge, the illusion of difficulty to generate challenge, right? You can feel awesome overcoming these obstacles in ways that don't actually threaten the player. If you've seen any modern shooter, right, all sorts of stuff is going on around you, but like really, you regenerate from bullets after like 5 seconds. So a lot of this stuff, not super threatening. But man, when there's 30 tanks storming down the road and you've just taken out 5 guys or running backwards, like you feel awesome. And so that's really the aesthetic of challenge. The playing a game to specifically overcome the arbitrary, and I really want to put that word in there, the arbitrary obstacles that have been placed between you and your goal. So with that in mind, right, we've got games like Super Meat Boy and I Want to Be the Guy and all these sort of things, which are very difficult games. And I'm going to argue that it's one of the 2 that are not on here. I will argue that it is one of the aesthetics that we'll come to later if we get there. because one of the aesthetics is actually mastery. And we'll talk about mastery when we get to that point, rather than challenge, although some of those obstacles are very fun to overcome. But can anybody name a game that we play for the challenge? Yes?
Left 4 Dead.
Left 4 Dead. All right, so you play for the joy of getting through that stuff, right? All right, who else? Yes?
Demon's Souls.
So Demon's Souls is a very difficult game. And there is a joy in overcoming some of those obstacles, right? Like when you finally beat those things, the one thing they do is make you feel really good about overcoming those unbelievable stopping points in your path. But let's get a couple others. Yes? Pokemon. Interesting. So I actually don't disagree with that, right? Like even though Pokemon in a lot of ways is a easy game, there's still a lot of joy in overcoming the all that is between you and actually completing the game. But yes, in the back. What? I might disagree a little bit with Minecraft because, and you can explain that one to me because to me, it's not one of the, it's not one of the core reasons that I go to Minecraft, right? Like so tell me more about it. So and I could see that a little bit, the challenge of not being able to build what you want. For most of us, I haven't played since they've done some of the more recent updates, but defeating the monsters was not the reason that I went to play Minecraft, right? It wasn't one of the core elements. I think we're going to find other things on this list that very clearly are. But all right, now we've got a bunch of hands. Uh-oh. Yes. What? Sorry, I still couldn't hear you. Oh, Uncharted, sure. Yeah, any of that type of game, right? There's other things going on. There might be some either narrative or fantasy there, but we have multiple core aesthetics. Uncharted is clearly a challenge game. Yes?
Braid.
Braid. Interesting. So, sure, you're playing Braid for the puzzles then, right? That's one of the core reasons you're like, I want to get through this puzzle. All right, in the back. Devil May Cry. Devil May Cry is... Sure. Like, I didn't see you kidding. I was just going to go to that. Like, Devil May Cry is an interesting case for me because so much of the awesome is actually not something I can do as a player, which puts it in a weird space for me. But all right, let's get two more. Yeah, over there. What?
Shadow of the Colossus.
So, Shadow of the Colossus, I don't know if I play it to overcome the Colossi. I'd have to think about that one. There was somebody on the stairs, yeah. Professor Layton, sure. Professor Layton is very much a challenge game, right? Like, there is no reason for there to be a million puzzles. Like, the fact that random old lady on the street is like, hey, before I let you pass, how about you answer this puzzle for me, right? Definition of arbitrary. And yet we play to overcome those arbitrary obstacles. All right, so I'm not sure what time it is at all, but we'll just keep blazing through. Fellowship. Anyone, thoughts on Fellowship? Yes, back there. Sure-ish, except for Second Life is now largely a prostitution-based economy. But, but let's just make sure we're on the same page. Somebody define game as social framework. Yes, right there.
Interacting with other people.
All right, great. So interacting with other people. Specifically, and I'm going to jump in because I'm trying to save us some time, there is also a core aesthetic which they didn't list in their initial set, competition, which is a specific form of interaction with other people, this desire to exert dominance over other people, which thousands of years of evolution have given us. Fellowship, game as social framework, is the rest of that interaction with other people, right? What's a game that you play in order to have that moment, right? To have that experience with some other actual human being outside the game? Yes? Yep, go for it. Yeah?
Getting to compete with other people is different from actually competing with an NPC. So the sense of beating another human being like myself instead of beating a computer.
And specifically, if you're trying to beat another human being, it's usually this competition, which is not as much on here, but usually they go hand in hand, right? Almost every MMO uses both competition and fellowship. But what's a non-MMO that you play to get this moment? Yes?
Dota and Heroes of New Earth.
All right, so Dota and Heroes of New Earth. I apparently have outlawed League of Legends from this list. But sure, all right, so you play Dota to meet new people, hang out, interact with real world people.
And mostly to beat them.
Right, so we'll get to that if we get through all of these. Let's talk about what is a game. There should be stuff that's pretty apparent to you guys. Reach Past, what's a non-MMO that you play to play with other people? Yes?
Portal 2?
All right, sure, Portal 2 has that moment where we're hanging out with somebody else. What else? Over there.
Little Big Planet.
Little Big Planet, sure. We've got a group of people, we're all playing together. Let's see if I can draw it out of you guys. Yes, right there. Yes. FIFA, sure. Wow, it's awesome. I get FIFA rather than Madden over here. This is great. Yeah, over there. Yeah, go for it. What? I still couldn't hear you. What?
Games on the Wii.
Yeah, all the games on the Wii. Sure, so if you ever have that moment where you've invited people over to play Wii Bowling, you're not really there to play Wii Bowling. You're there for the other people. Yes? What? That was great. It happened twice. All right, you guys should do rock, paper, scissors, decide who's going first. But I'm just going to, on the right. That was great. He even got it. It was my right. All right, so Buzz? Oh, sure, absolutely. And you? What did you, or whoever else was saying something over there? Oh, all right, great. And Left 4 Dead. So Left 4 Dead, yeah, you're absolutely playing. So the one I'm trying to get out of you guys is actually more any board game, right? Any parlor game, those sort of things. You're often playing for the people as much as you are playing for the game itself. And there are lots of ways that your designers have included this in the experience. For example, do any of you guys play Settlers of Catan? All right, so we got a couple of you guys. A game largely about trading, right? If any of you guys played Monopoly when you were young, or when you were very young, Chutes and Ladders or Candyland. Candyland has no interaction at all, right? Candyland is the only game that I will actually step out and say is not a game, since there's no choices that the player ever makes through the entire thing. But it's all about fellowship. It's all about hanging out with your parents or with your friend. Again, the one that surprised me we didn't get to is Rock Band, right? Rock Band is about jamming out with your friends, right? That's a big part of it. You cannot indulge in the fantasy of being a rock band alone. All right, so let's blaze through the rest. Discovery, game is uncharted territory. What's this mean? Yes, thought? Minecraft. Right, so, but let's get first what we mean by game is uncharted territory. Yes? Ben in the back, yeah.
A game where you're put in a situation where you know nothing about the world you're put in.
All right, so game where you know nothing about the world you're put in. That's a good start. Let's keep drilling down, see if we can get a little bit more specific. Yes, go for it.
It has one of the main things that people are doing is exploration. You get to know the place.
All right, so exploration might be a key component. Okay, again, that's more of a dynamic to get to this aesthetic. But sure, tell me more.
It makes us feel like we are exploring the world for the first time.
All right, so exploring a world for the first time? Yes.
It is an accomplishment to discover something that was not yet found.
All right, an accomplishment to discover something that is not yet found. We're pretty close now. And then there was somebody right in front of you, I think. Oh yeah, go for it.
I think like innovation, so a game that was never seen before, so we don't know what to expect from it.
All right, so innovation. We're circling around it. It's this, human beings have this desire for novelty, right? For things which are to us new. And any game that is built around discovery is built around that joy of finding the new. So we had Minecraft in there, but give me a couple others. What else? Yes? Pokemon, all right, so there is plenty to discover in Pokemon. That is absolutely true, right? From the way the creatures interact, to getting new creatures, to how to evolve them properly. There's all these moments where I'm experiencing something I haven't experienced before. All right, yes, go for it. Tomb Raider, interesting. Tell me about Tomb Raider. Tell me why, tell me what you discover in Tomb Raider. Do you, sure, so it's places that you aren't usually, right? But that may be an element of fantasy, right? To step into this role that you aren't usually able to step into, to be this, this crypt robbing chick. But do you play it for the newness, right? Do you play it to see what they haven't unveiled to you yet? And that's sort of what we're looking for. And Minecraft is a good example, right? Because Minecraft, in a lot of ways, flouts a lot of our game design principles that we're used to. Any game where the tutorial is, go to the wiki on the internet. That's insane. And yet, we stuck through it because we want to see each of these things that he unveils, right? We want to find, we're looking for that new thing. We play it to find a new combination. But what else? Yes, right there. Yes. What one? So are you talking the 2077 or whatever? Oh, all right. So I will confess I have not yet played the new one. But sure, any of the Discovery games, Uncharted Waters is the same way. I would totally agree. Let's see. I don't think I'm right for you. Yeah. Dwarf Fortress is absolutely a Discovery game. I have a lot to say on Dwarf Fortress, but we'll leave that for the moment. All right, somebody else, yes? BioShock. Interesting. So do you play BioShock for the newness, for the things that you discover in it? All right, so you're there to experience these new parts of the world. All right, somebody else. Yes, in the back-ish, middle back. Yes, yes, you. No, yes. All right. That still didn't work. Go for it. What, Terraria? All right, so we're on our Minecraft line of games. Let's jump and see if we can find something else. Sure, go for it. Rise of Nations. Huh. I don't know if I would put. These are ones I have to think through more, right? Because a lot of these ones that are thrown out, I haven't thought of in this context. I'm, again, not sure if I play Rise of Nations I run out of things which are new relatively quickly and then play, although I'm mostly competitive in Rise of Nations, right? And so it's really that dominance. But let's go for a couple more. Yes? Nethack. Sure, right? Nethack there's a lot of discovery at this point, 20 years into Nethack. All right, let's get like 2 more and then move on. Go for it. Journey. All right, explain.
You are exploring the world with, it's the game, it's exploring the world with someone else.
We're talking about the Journey that's not out yet, right? I guess at this point I'm certainly playing to discover. All right, I mean, it probably will be. I agree with that assessment. All right, yes, right there, white shirt. What? Borderlands. All right, so again, so explain to me why. So again, we've got this vast open map, right? Skyrim is another great example, and I think we need to move on. But the one thing I don't want you guys to get confused, which you guys were very good about doing, often when I talk about discovery, people think of discovery in terms of finding new places. And this is certainly one element of discovery, right? You play World of Warcraft, you play Skyrim to figure out what's in front of you, what's next, what cool thing is going to pop up around the corner. But that isn't the only element of discovery. We've got all these other systems that, as they reveal themselves, as they combine in new and novel ways, if that's what you're fundamentally playing for, if you're playing to find something new, then that is discovery. So yes, we have somebody right over there. Yeah, go for it.
I'm remembering now the Final Fantasy VII. I had a lot of fun discovering new ways to combine the
Materia?
exactly. So I kept playing the game to discover new ways of playing the game.
Right, so once you're at that point, and I'm not sure that that is initially a core element when they were designing it, but that was certainly a area where they were using discovery to support other things. Definitely novel. But since I have no idea what time it is, since there doesn't appear to be a clock in this room, how good am I on time? 10 minutes, perfect. All right, we got 2 of these, and then 2 more that are not on this list, so I want to run through. And so we've got 10 minutes. Expression, game of self-discovery, what's it mean? Oh, come on, this is the lightning round. You can't do that to me now. All right, back there.
You create the game.
All right, so you create the game is certainly true in the broadest of senses. Tell me more about it, though. Yes.
It has 2 sides to it. You can, by self-discovery, creating your own character, you can develop a long story by knowing more about yourself in the game. And also, in other ways, you can see your own talent, but that's an entirely different structure of games.
So evolving your character is certainly an element of, through the narrative, certainly an element of self-discovery. What else? Yes, over there.
More than getting to know the game, you get to know yourself a little better.
Yes, and this is sort of the ability to enact your will, to project yourself through the game. So somebody give me an example of this. Yes? Scribblenauts, sure, right? So Scribblenauts, the moment where you stop playing to actually beat the puzzles as efficiently as possible, but rather start playing to see what cool creative things you can do, largely with Cthulhu, to beat those puzzles, that's absolutely expression, right? Because it's about you, and you, on some level, are learning about yourself through it. What else? Yes?
LSD Dream Emulator.
What one?
LSD Dream Emulator.
I am not sure I have played that one. I'm just going to leave it at that. All right, somewhere in the back. Yeah, the guy whose hand I can't see because you're obscured by this flashing thing. All right, tell me.
Mass Effect.
Mass Effect, sure, right? So you're expressing yourself through it as you evolve your Commander Shepard. We talk about our Commander Shepard. We don't talk about Commander Shepard, right? So clearly self-expression, yes.
Grand Theft Auto.
Okay, tell me about Grand Theft Auto. Tell me about how you express yourself through Grand Theft Auto. It was a little bit of a trap, but actually I'm serious. I think you're actually right, but tell me about it.
When you're bored with the missions, you can just wander around the city and you can
So
enjoy it.
the moment where you decide that the thing you want to do is not play their game, but play your game, when you're like, I wonder if I could make that jump. I'm going to pile up 7 cars and run over them at high speed. That is a form of self-expression, right? And it's really interesting because most other media don't allow for this. You talk about traditional narrative, you talk about film, and this is an aesthetic that they cannot deliver on, that we're uniquely suited to deliver on because we are an interactive media. But give me 1 or 2 more. Yes. What? Oh, Sleep is Death. Wow, that got called out. How many of you guys have played Sleep is Death? All right, none of you guys. Well, we got 2. I'm assuming you guys have played it with each other at some point. Sleep is Death is a bonkers game. I would recommend that you all look it up. Sleep is Death definitely forms expression. But we had 2 more up there. So 1 in the back and then the one for right in front of him. Yes? What? Infamous. So sure, you're building up your character and you're able to define the way he goes. I have a little bit more of a problem with Infamous just because at least in the first one, I felt like the choice was so binary, right? I ended up not defining me, but rather choosing the thing that would give me the coolest powers. But all right, and yeah, sure, there was, yes, go for it. What? Gary's mod, sure. Anybody else? Anything else? Oh God, we've got so many. Yes. What? All right, so tell me about why Mount and Blade.
Well, right at the beginning of the game, you choose what kind of character you want, what kind of lore you want to have. If you want to be a nobleman, Mount in the Middle Age. If you want to be a nobleman, son of a farmer, and then you have to start from the back. If you're a nobleman, you get close to the king, you get to go to their armies. If you're a farmer's son, you'll have to get to be the best for the king, then you have to fight a bit for the king.
All right, so we've got a lot of these moments. This is all really good. So I want you guys just to be aware that there are lots of other ways that we can deliver on expression. For example, for most of you guys, if you've ever played an MMO or, in fact, most RPGs, not only the defining my play style, not only choosing my character, but even things like choosing my armor, right? If you ever see people who want their character to dress a certain way, right? This is expression. And this is something that, as I said, we are uniquely suited to deliver on. Very powerful aesthetic in games. So this is a really weird one. Let's talk about submission, game as pastime. Anyone? Any thoughts? We got a couple in the back. Yeah, all the way in the back. Go for it. Sure, right, so it's like solitaire. Tell me more, tell me why. Yes? Right, so in some ways, this is literally this, game to pass time. If any of you guys ever gone home and flipped on the TV and watched an old episode of a show you've already seen a couple of times because you just want to tune out, right? That is actually a core desire we have, this ability to like game as de-stressing mechanism. This is very, very often found in social games, right? Especially like Farmville, that sort of thing. Requires nothing of you, rewards you and gives you a system to function within that is for no other purpose than to let you pass a few minutes. Many of you guys saw my episode on Skinner boxes. Skinner box is almost always this. It's probably the most evil way to achieve that. But nonetheless, anytime where you see a Skinner box, probably game is pastime. So since we're clearly running out of time, I'm just going to dive through two more. And then if we have, do we have any time for Q&A? No. All right. I will hang out afterwards. Anything you guys want to ask, just like come up, hang out, and ask. So the other two aesthetics that we should really talk about are competition, which we've already discussed a little bit. There is some desire in us to dominate other human beings. This tends to be a more male desire, but nonetheless, as human beings, we like to rank and order ourselves. It's just something that we want to do. There are plenty of ways you can bring this into a game, even in single-player games, right, depending on the venue. Arcade machines had a great deal of this competition just by putting up a leaderboard. The other one that's really interesting to me, that's really valuable to think about, is mastery. Mastery is game as self-improvement. You play Meat Boy for the joy of getting better at playing Meat Boy. This is something that also key element in Rock Band, right? There is something in us that likes this form of improvement, and games do a really good job of giving us things to improve at and clear metrics showing us that we are improving to deliver on this sort of mastery element. But I would love to go through how to use these. We are simply not going to get time. Again, if anyone wants to talk to me afterwards, I'm going to try and hang out here for as long as I possibly can. Probably need food at some point, but other than that, like, you're all welcome. I'm happy to answer any questions, but we really got to get on to the next panel. So thank you guys all for coming to this.